And when I wake up in the morning, I'm feeling a bit hungry. So I get the coffee and the ghee. So I'm still fasting because I've got no carbs and no protein, but the fat keeps your ketones up and keeps you going for the day. It's amazing.
Oh,
beautiful.
Of like cow's milk. It's Indians use it as a substitute of butter.
Right.
And Indian food, right?
It's like butter, but only the fat part. They get rid of proteins and everything else.
That's crazy. Wow.
I would love to get Kerry try that.
You've got to try it out. It's amazing. It's so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So what are we doing?
Okay. What are we doing? Great. What's happening is I thought what I'll do is just interview you both so we can get all the content we need for our training, and then I'll get the girls to turn it into a PowerPoint, and then I'll present it. Perfect. I think that's the quickest way.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing, and
I
can't expect anyone to read my mind.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
So what I'll do is I'll start with the checklist.
Yep.
I've emailed you the checklist.
Yeah, I got that. Yep.
Yeah, you can jump all the kettle center. So
Yep.
mortgage broker checklist. Yep. So you filled it out, but I didn't want you to filling it out, but thank you for filling it out. What I want to do is we want to add a question or take a question out, because what I want them to fill this out.
Yep.
So then they're like, okay, MTM is the company to go for, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right? Because we don't want to give them the answers. We want them working out the answers on their own. It's more of a journey.
Yep.
Right? So, so what we're going to do is we're going to say, this is the checklist you need. So what's going to happen is they're going to ring you. They're going to go through their checklist. Christina.
What are you doing, Christina?
You can, but I'm recording this.
What are you?
What
is she doing?
Toy I bought in the weekend. It's called Katsu. Amazing stuff. So what happens is you put it on you and it restricts your blood flow in your limbs. And because of that, when you go for a workout, it feels like the workout's 10 times harder, and you get the benefit 10 times harder without doing all the damage.
I've heard this, yeah.
Because I actually, I hurt my back when I was overseas, and for some reason I can't lift heavy weights. Every time I do it, I'm in pain. So I bought Katsu so I could do light workouts and still work out, and it's amazing. Like I did one yesterday, and I nearly went double the size after restricting all the blood flow because the muscles just fill with water. So it's really good. It makes you look massive for about half an hour, and then you deflate again. So I just got to do it every half an hour so I can look big.
Amazing. I love it. All right. Okay.
So with the checklist, which lenders and loans do you have access to your books? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What are the area of specialty, first home buyers, investors, right? So with this, we want to put this, okay, what we're looking for is, in brackets, we are looking for a mortgage broker that's got experience when it comes to property investing.
Yeah, correct.
So the questions we need to ask is, are you a property investor?
Yeah.
Do you help property investors? Do you know how to get a property investing loan?
Yep.
When it comes to valuations and everything else like that, because it's very important.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a few key things missing here.
Yep.
Do you want me to fill it out, or do you know what to put in there? The questions.
No, if you want to do it, we'll just tell you the answers and
Okay. Yep. Okay. Let's do this. Yep. So the question is, okay, do you have experience with property investment loans?
Yes, absolutely.
Yep, that's one question. Next question is, are you a property investor?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And do you know how to structure the loan so we get the maximum tax benefit and the maximum safety and asset protection?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
That's the important stuff here. So what I'll do is, we're doing this video. The girls are going to watch this video. They can just type it in the thing and they can fix it. That's done. Awesome. Good work. We've done our first bit.
Yep.
This is the way I like to work.
Yep. That's good.
So what are the topics we're going to talk about? Because I sent you a list. We spoke about the topics, didn't we?
Yeah. So let me just bring that. So V did the 2 on, where are we?
Well, what I'll do is I'll just jump into a topic. Let's go.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah, I've got it. So you did, which ones did you do?
Why you need a broker and how to choose a broker.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Sorry, can you say it again?
Why you need a broker and how to choose a broker.
Yep. Okay. Great. So we did that. Now let's go through that. So why do we need a broker?
Because a broker has too many options compared to just one lender. So if you go to the bank, you don't have much options to compare with.
Yep, exactly. So what it is, it's a bit like the round peg in a square hole or the square peg in the round hole. So getting the right fit is very important. So with banks, how many products do banks normally have on average?
I mean, every bank's got at least 20, 30 products.
Yep, but they're all tailored to different things. So some banks are interested in investors. Some banks are interested in self-employed. Some banks are interested in different things. So there's different banks that like different types of customers, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Yep. So if you were, let's say, for example, I know in the past, if you were low doc self-employed, you go to Rams and get a loan straight away and a really good rate. But if you went to the Commonwealth Bank, they're not going to touch you, are they?
Yeah,
I think NAB, they like, and certain banks like want 12 months worth of financials. Other banks want 2 years. Other banks want BAS. So really what's happening here is with a broker, the broker finds out what you've got and then pieces together which banks will be happy to accept what you've got.
Correct.
Because you may not have all the pieces. So you've got A, B, D, E, and we're going to say, okay, these banks here will actually fit you. These other banks, don't even bother. Don't even waste your time. Because all we're going to do, because if you go for a loan and the banks reject you, that's a bad mark under your name, isn't it?
Yeah, correct.
Yep. And that's going to stop you from going forward. So actually people going willy-nilly and going to a bank, they may actually, even if they're actually good people to get a good property and they can borrow 3 or 4 houses, they can actually, by not knowing how to do things, they'll go to a bank or two and actually destroy their credit rating and get nothing and actually potentially miss out on hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of profit in the future from not being a property investor. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So really, this is so important. Someone going to a bank can actually jeopardize their whole future by doing it willy-nilly and not knowing what they're doing, especially if they lodge the application, because you've got someone at the bank that doesn't know what they're doing. You've got this junior clerk, take the details. They don't know how to protect your credit. They're lodging an application. You've had 5 lodgements. You've been rejected, all because the paperwork wasn't done properly or there was one thing that was missing. And suddenly your credit is screwed. Would you agree?
Yeah.
So this is really, in essence, how to stop screwing yourself out in the future. That's a good topic. I like that. I know like the name.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So what else? What other damage can they do? What are they doing? What's going on?
I'll give you a classic example, which was from last year, November, December. So we got a client. She was a long-lasting client with CBA for 30 years. And she had like 2 loans with them, 2 properties, wanted to buy the 3rd one. And she went into the branch and the branch person just took 10 minutes and said, look, you have the borrowing capacity up to 500. You can just go ahead and buy a property. And she went on the same week into the auction, purchased a property of 475 and was really happy that, it's lower than what they actually said that my borrowing capacity is. And went to the branch, said, look, I've already purchased a property. Here is a contract of sale with 30 days settlement. The branch collected all the documents, lodged the application. On the 5th day, the application got declined.
Wow.
Because the husband was self-employed and it was not suiting the appetite for CBA. The real estate agent who sold the property is a really good friend of Kerry, knows him for like 20, 25 years, Sam.
Yep.
And he came back to us saying that, look, one of my purchasers, she's like really into a bad situation and I want you to help her out. She came to us on 8th or the 9th day and the settlement was in 20 days. We lodged the application and refinanced all the properties because she did not have enough cash to pay the deposit. So
Yep.
she only had 10%, and we basically refinanced her 2 properties from CBA to NAB and got the approval for the 3rd property with NAB and settled in 20 days.
Yeah.
Wow, there you go. So you basically, she could have got sued for not performing and not actually completing the contract. So that was amazing.
And losing the deposit of $47,500
Yeah.
because it was an auction.
Yeah, so you saved her 47 grand and
Yeah.
saved it from missing out on the house of her dreams, which is amazing, which is
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So the big problems with banks are, one is they've only got a limited amount of products, and two, they haven't, the other challenge with banks is the people in the bank don't have your best interests at heart, because
No.
they work for the bank, and the banks have got the policy, and they're going to give you the loan that the banks want you to get,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, let's face it, the banks aren't on our side,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They see us to make money out of us, and really the only person that keeps you safe and is actually an advocate of you is a broker,
Yeah.
right? Because the broker's there who can protect you, right?
Yeah.
And actually the broker's, a smart broker, he's on your side, because if he can help you make more money, save money and get a good loan, then you're going to get more properties, and it's a long-term relationship. And that's why you need to get a broker that's been around for a long time, but also is thinking long-term. You don't want to get a broker that's been in there for a year, just wants to make a quick dollar and get out and stuff like that. You really want a broker that's looking long-term and building a long-term business. That's why it's so important. So what's the, how do we find out, you know, the bad brokers out there? How do we know who they are? The cowboys. There's cowboys out there you've got to avoid. How do you avoid the bad brokers? How do you avoid the cowboys?
You need to be, you know, looking at your due diligence on the, you know, on their past history and their performance, and
How do you do that? How do you do that? Do you Google them?
question.
Oh, so basically, like, if they're going to charge you upfront for anything, that's a big no-no. You know, like, we don't charge our clients unless and until they're completely new to us. Yeah, like, if they're referred to us by known sources, we don't charge them. It's more about trust, that, you know, like, they would be there for us and we would be there for them. The second thing is more about the recommendation on their websites from the existing clients and the Google reviews, which really help them to understand their background. And, you know, like, how quick they are in responding to your query. If it's going to take them for like 2 or 3 weeks to get back to you, that says a lot.
Look, unfortunately, a lot of brokers are like that. And part of the reason we've created our program and the Black Belt Investing Program, and this is what we do for our members, is I've been in property for 30 years and we have hundreds and hundreds of people. We've helped thousands of people around Australia. And when you help thousands of people, we get to test brokers out, and we really know our stuff, because I can tell a good broker or a bad broker. And because we send them lots of clients, within 1 or 2 clients, we know if someone's bad and we cut them off. So really our system of getting good brokers is really unprecedented. And the fact of it is, anyone that joins our program, when they go to our circle of safety and get a broker, they can rest assured this broker is there for the long term, because we send them lots of clients and they want to make sure we look after them. So they win. And that's part of the reason people want to join a program and be part of a buying group, is because of safety in numbers. Because as an individual, if you go to a broker and they lose you, big deal. But if a broker loses 100 clients, that's very important. They could lose their business and their business can close. So that's one good thing about being part of a buyers group like ours. When you get recommended to a broker, you know the recommendation's strong, you know they've been used before, and you know they've got your best interests at heart, and therefore you can just get the broker, do the work, and you can just sleep easy and not worry about a thing. I thought I'd put that plug into the training, because good one. Right. Anyway, this is great. This training's so powerful. I love it.
Perfect.
So, okay. So we've talked about why you can't go to banks. We talked about getting the wrong broker and getting the recommendation and things like that. And the other thing is, what happens is I've actually got a team of people that do a lot of due diligence, and we've got an interview process that we go through when we choose our brokers. And because of that, we can really determine who's who in the zoo very quickly. And most people don't have time to do that. Where, you know, we've interviewed hundreds of brokers, and you as an individual, if you're going to interview 100 brokers, by the time you get through, you know, what's going to happen by the time you do that, you might as well get a full-time job. Oh, thank you, Christine. I needed these. I was looking for my little earbuds. I couldn't find them. I'm always losing something. So that's the beauty of it. So the beauty of it is you can save yourself hundreds of hours of interviewing brokers just by joining the program, and then we just send you the right broker.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. So let's talk about the next topic.
I think with going to the banks, one of the things is that if you go to, for example, let's just say you go to Westpac, your local Westpac branch around the corner, and that's who you've got your bank accounts with. If you don't suit their needs, then you're not going to think that you're eligible for anything else.
Yeah, exactly. Look, this is the funny thing. This is the fact of it. 70% of people that join our program have been rejected by the banks, whether they went through a broker or a bank. 70% of them thought they couldn't get finance.
Yeah.
These people now on their second, third, fourth, fifth property. Fine tuning. And what I want to do is let's go for an example, because also getting the right broker, and the good thing is, I mean, if you've got a broker, the other important thing is when you're investing, you can't invest willy-nilly. You really need to have a strategy and a system to invest.
Yeah.
People that invest by guessing, they're getting the results as well by guessing. You know what I mean? If you don't plan something properly. So, and part of the reason people join a program like ours is because we've got a strategy and a system. And the fact of it is, when you've got a broker, you need that broker to understand that strategy and understand the strategy and be able to do that. Because if someone doesn't understand your strategy, they're going to get you the wrong loan. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, because getting the right loan is important. And a lot of people don't know how to get the right loan, especially brokers, because brokers have been brainwashed by the banks, and they're doing the principal and interest and cross-collateralizing and all this sort of stuff, which is great for the banks.
We hate cross-collateralization. We hate it.
And look, the thing is, if you want to get your third, fourth, fifth property, what you need to do is you need to really have, let's talk about that, because if you want to get your third, fourth, fifth property, you really need to structure your loans the right way, and also have the right interest rate and be interest only, so your repayments are lower, so you can really accelerate that. Let's talk about how do you get your third, fourth, fifth property? How do you get yourself ready for that? How do we think 4 or 5 moves ahead?
Yeah.
One thing a lot of brokers do, and a big mistake, is they do fixed interest for 3 years, and then suddenly you can't do anything for 3 years. You know what I mean? And this is the problem. Brokers do that because they lock you in, and then they're not going to lose their commission, right? But when you've got a broker that's part of Circle of Safety, that's looking after your interests, they don't want to lock you into one loan. They want to help you grow your portfolio. And they don't mind changing the loan around to get you where you need to get, because you need to be flexible. See, with investing, you can't be like a ship and just go slowly down one way, because when you get locked in with the wrong loans, turning around or changing takes years, takes a long time. What we want to do, we want to be agile. We want to be like a speedboat. And we want the right loan where we can go tacking left, right, and center, while the other ships are moving slowly. We're getting ahead of them, right ahead, and beating it. And that's the most important part.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I think we are very good at, well, I'd say more than very good, I think we're superb at, is untangling a mess that a bank has gone and done when they cross-collateralize a multi property portfolio. That's our specialty.
Yep. And look, one of the key things you need to do is untangle. How do you know if you're tangled? Is there something they can do to check if they're tangled? Can a normal person do that, or do you need to go to a broker?
Well, most average people wouldn't know. We can tell. We can pick it up straight away.
Yeah.
We just know. We just know. 18 years of experience. I can pretty well tell by looking at a fact find, like I did the other day, and I said to VI, this is all cross collateralized, pretty straightforward. So.
Yep.
And then we say to the client, do you know what loan's secured by what property? They've got no idea. And so we say to them, right, well, we need you to call the bank and ask them to tell you which property is secured by every loan you've got.
Yep. And look, that's very important. And the thing is, we've got to keep that in mind, that really at the end of the day, one of the first things we do with our members when they join is we send them through to you guys, and first we do is look at their situation and detangle them. But the next thing we do is, which is just as important, is we increase their cash flow.
Yeah.
Right. And that's one thing, because you guys know our program.
Yeah.
you know investment property, and you understand this. And I want to talk about a recent case study that we had. What were their names? Their first names only, because we're going to be using this in our example.
Rishal and Tejal.
Yes, right. Yes.
Yeah.
So what happened is they've been using other companies to invest, and what's happened is the other companies had no idea and they didn't know how to structure the loan or anything, and they've been buying properties willy-nilly without a strategy. And they've been following us for a while. And what happened was they've been seeing the great results we're getting for everyone, and they decided to finally join us, right? And they were skeptical at first, but we came in, we sent them through to you, and you went in there to do a bit of detangling. Tell me what happened.
So basically, when I actually looked at the fact find, I saw that the loan amounts were everywhere above 90%, and the other loan amounts were less than 60%. So what the banks did is they tried to use the equity and help them buy this new property, but they can't sell the new property unless and until it's below 80%. So that's where I told them, look, when you're going to be part of this program, you have to be really flexible on what you buy and what you sell. And the first thing you need to do is basically separate the securities. Mm-hmm. So technically you're not borrowing anything extra. Your debt is still at the same amount.
Yeah, but we're just moving things around, aren't we?
Yeah.
To make it cleaner and more separated.
Yeah. And they were really surprised and shocked what they did in the past and what's going to happen in the future. So, they were really happy and they're like, let's do it. It took me almost 2 hours in the span of 1 week to prepare my email and explain everything in the email and just send it up. And as soon as they read the email, they were happy. So this is the same thing I did with another client referred by Belinda today. The client was referred last week, but I just emailed him today the whole structure. They are with Beyond Bank, and they use the same thing. They purchased a property through PPS last year in Queensland, Turlock and Maggie.
Yep.
So it was cross-collateralized to buy that Queensland property. And I said, look, I'm going to get you a better rate, plus also separate the securities. And they were happy about it. I said, look, let's do cash out from your home and reduce the debt on the investment property and keep the property separate. Because down the track, if you want to sell that property or whatever you want to do with PPS, it won't allow you to be flexible because it's linked. And they were very happy about it. And we're going to help them get a pre-approval for another property, which is totally separate.
Excellent. So I want to go back to the first example, because after you detangled them, because what happened was when they came to us, they were checkmated. They couldn't get another loan. They couldn't get another property. The banks were saying no. They even went to another broker, and the broker said, no, you can't get any more property.
Right.
And they were very frustrated because they earned good income, but they just couldn't get more property.
Yeah.
And they said, look, we want to join you, but only if we can open the gates and let us get past this sort of big block, because they had a massive block in front of them. And part of the reason was they were tangled up, but also their cash flow was very poor. They were paying too much, the wrong type of loan, everything else like that. And we needed to fine tune things. And once you fine tune them, how much cash flow did you help them? How much money did you save them?
Oh, just in interest, we would be saving them more than $1,500, $1,800 a month, which is kind of like a repayment for it.
But totally with the repayments, I thought it was like $46,000 a year repayment.
A year, yeah. A year.
What's the figure? How much per year?
It was approximately between $38,000 to $42,000 just in interest.
Yep, but we've changed some from principal and interest to interest only as well, correct?
Yeah.
So I need, what's the total figure? How much are they saving per year total?
In repayments?
Yeah. So what I want to say is, so last year they paid this much per year, principal and interest, right? How much are they paying this year?
So
it would be principal and interest. It would be to be honest, I have to calculate because the amount would be really big because they were paying principal and interest on everything.
Yes. So can you give me the figures so I can put it in the case study? Because I want to know the total amount, because I think it was like 46,000 a year or something. This is very exciting.
That was just the interest, but if I calculate the repayments, it would be more.
Yeah, I want everything.
I'll do that. I'll do that for you.
Because really, at the end of the day, we want to show people the whole lot. Because I know principal, because what they're doing now, they're not paying principal, but they're paying it to themselves and putting it in an offset account.
That's right. Yeah.
Because what happens is the banks want you to pay principal to them.
Yeah.
I prefer paying principal to myself in my offset account or redraw facility. The reason being you're safer, because if I'm paying principal and interest on a loan, right? And let's say I lose my tenant, I lose my job, and then I can't pay my payments.
That's right.
What's the bank going to do?
Oh,
foreclose.
yeah.
Yes. But let's say instead I had an interest-only loan and I was putting the principal that I would normally give to the bank in my offset account, and I had 40,000 in my offset account, and then for 3 months I had no tenant and no job. What would happen to me?
Oh, you're still stable, because you have enough money.
The repayment's being debited out of the account. There's money there.
Totally. Nothing would happen. I wouldn't even miss a beat.
Yeah.
At the same money, but structured differently.
Yeah, that's
right. And that's why we do interest only. And that's why we do principal. That's why I want people having a minimum of 10,000 in offset account. Very, very important to keep them safe. But also and this works only if you've got discipline, but I don't like paying principal to the bank because I want to control the principal, because I've got many properties. And what I need to do is, if shit goes down, I want a big lump of cash there just sorting me out. I mean, with my offset account, my business could stop working. I could lose all my tenants and I'll be fine for 2 years.
Yeah.
Nothing will happen. And
Well,
that's
take coronavirus as an example at the moment. That strategies are really, it's solid.
Yeah, it's solid. And that's what we want to do with our members. We want to keep them safe because, I mean, when you buy a property, sometimes you're cashed out because you've got to do whatever it takes to get there. Then the important thing is to start putting that money in the offset account, start saving and really get to that minimum 10 grand, then slowly get up from there, because we really want people to stay safe and have that nest egg there and things like that. So that's really good.
I just want to add 2 more things for that particular client. And again, it's a classic example representing, values for the business. So we just discussed the other day, we are not going to, make money out of it, but it's never about money, because they were clear about, they're going to sell the properties in next 12 months, the 3 properties. And I said, look, that's fine. You don't need to sign a credit code, which binds you on paying on the commission. So you have told us upfront, you trusted in us. We trust in you that this relationship is going to be lifetime. And even if the banks take the commission from us, we won't charge you because you have been upfront right from the beginning. But knowing the fact that what you buy in the future would be through us as well. And he was completely surprised, and he's like, let's do it, because previous broker basically asked me to sign it and I did it, and I can't move my loan. And he has to pay him $2,000. And I said, look, the amount of rebates what you're going to get from the bank is almost like $10,000. It would cover off your broker's clawback, and we can still help you out. And he was really happy about it.
Great. So not only did you save him money, you got him $10,000 in rebates.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. I need the real figures so I can put that in the case. That's brilliant. That's fantastic. So you guys have just done an amazing job. That's excellent. And look, that's another thing we need to add to our list. When you talk to a broker and you join a broker, if you have to change your loan, are they going to force you to pay their commission out, or are they going to allow you to not do that and continue to go forward? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a very good point. That's excellent. We're getting a lot of gold here, guys. You guys are very good. I love it.
Thank you.
I knew I could get some gold out of you guys. So look, next question I've got is, so when they came in and saw us, they were checkmate. They couldn't get any other properties. And really, at the end of the day, their cash flow is so bad, even though they both earn good money, they're running on a treadmill, paying the bank, principal and interest, paying the bank. How many properties can they get now?
They can get 1, and as soon as they sell the other one, we can help them buy another property as well.
Okay, great. And once we continue on and start moving things around, we could probably get several properties.
Yeah, and technically they couldn't borrow more than $50,000 with the previous broker or the previous bank. And we have lodged an application with Westpac for them at a purchase price of $400,000.
Excellent, great. We want to get them a real high quality property so they can start getting some growth.
Yeah.
Excellent. So look, that was really good. That was excellent. Now, what was other topics that we're going to talk about? Because I just wanted to see.
Yes, so we had
get the banks to say yes every time.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do we get the banks to say yes every time? How do we get our credit rating looking good? What do we do there?
We just find it.
Oh, there we go. Yep. How do we say? How do we get how to get the bank to say yes every time. Well, I think with that one, I think it's important that we as brokers know what the banks are looking for.
Yes, like we said before about the square peg and the round thing,
Yeah.
that's important, matching people up. But also, when you're getting a loan, you can go to a certain point before it's registered that you've tried for it. How does that work? And what do you need to do there to make sure you don't? Because you don't want to go out, try to get a loan, and get knocked back and have it on your record. How do you avoid that?
Well, with us, and this is off the top of my head, I would say our success rate exceeds 95%.
Yep. And how do you make it that way? What do you do to avoid getting knocked back?
We make sure we know our serviceability policy with the bank that we're going to go with.
Yep.
We know the valuation policy for that bank, depending on the type of transaction it is, and I'll give you an example of that. And this probably doesn't relate to you, but it's just a good analogy as to what I suppose the experience that we've got and what we know. If we are doing a matrimonial transfer and transferring it, from husband to wife or from son to mum or mum to son, we go and order a valuation. It may come up with just a desktop valuation, which is normal most of the time. I know straight away in any of those circumstances where it is not a what we call an arm's length transaction, the banks require a full valuation. So number one, we're already making sure that we've got that because we know that's what they're going to want, and that's just through experience. There's no rule book which says you must get a full valuation if it's buying from mum to son or whatever. I just know that straight away.
Yep.
If we know we know all about, and again this may not apply to you, but we know all about high density. We know all about postcode restrictions. We know about exposure to a lender. So if there's an area that bank may have too much exposure and don't want to do any more lending in that particular area.
Yep. So there's a lot of finessing in this and getting it right. So what happens, like, for example, let's say you've got someone, you get all the details, and where's the point of no return where they get something against their name before they pull out?
Well, once the application gets submitted into the bank system, it gets recorded straight on their credit file.
Right.
Yeah.
So
there's no going to the bank and getting an answer without it going on their credit file, unfortunately.
Right.
We do have the ability with some lenders to do some pre-assessment scenario work.
Yep.
It gives us, and if we feel we need to do that because we don't feel that we're going to get a yes automatically, and I think we know we're going to get a yes automatically most of the time or not.
Yep.
We will workshop it with some lenders that allow us to workshop deals.
Yep. Great. So you've got some things in place to do that, and that's very important. And we've got to be mindful that some brokers don't do that because they're lazy and they just lodge it. And really taking care at the beginning and getting everything right, crossing all your T's, dotting all your I's.
Yeah.
It's so vital to help you long term to get your credit rating. So what else do you need? What else can we do to get our credit looking good all the time? What are some hints? What about when we let's say, for example, I'm going for a loan. What do I do with my credit cards? Do I lower my limits? What do I do?
Well, that's a valid point. So look, if I look at our fact find, excuse me 1 second, I've got to take an urgent call. But
Sorry. Yeah. So basically, it's more about making the repayments on time. That's what's going to happen. And recently the banks have introduced on the credit report, you can see if they have missed out any repayment in last 12 months. Now if I show you a credit report even if it's a credit card loan repayment or anything, if you have missed out 1 or 2 payments, the bank would know straight away. And that's the first point of decline. So the main thing what you have to make sure is you make all your repayments on time.
Yep.
And you don't have the credit cards, active there and not using it. So if you have like 4 credit cards, but you're only using one credit card for all your repayments, there's no point even having 3 other credit cards.
Yeah, because they're going to go against you. But also, if you've got a big limit like 40,000, that's going to affect you. You can reduce that, can't you?
That's right. So let's say if you have a limit of $40,000, but you always play around between $20,000, that $20,000 is unnecessary. You're like, and again, it's not your money, so you can't have that limit sitting there for the future use. So that's what the other thing is. And again, the classic example is Shamani, like from Positive Property Solution. She cleared, like, our fact find are self-sufficient to tell us what the client background is. They asked the clients if they have any defaults in the past. And she was upfront and she said, oh yeah, and like back in 2018.
Can you ask Kerry to close the door? Because we can hear him on the microphone, that's all. And,
sorry, just a second. Good. George is saying if you can go in the meeting room, like he can hear you over here. Yes.
Yeah, we just don't want his personal call recording on here. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's all.
Like it's one of the clients, her settlement is on 18th of May. And we launched her application with Westpac Private Banking. And because of COVID-19, they were basically saying that we can't lend her the money. And her husband used to work as a DJ in US, and he can't travel to US. And we explained the whole strategy with multiple properties and what they're going to sell off and those sort of things. And they're now happy to approve it. So, and she was like literally in stress and those sort of things. And the bank were going to foreclose her property because of the bank guarantee. And we just helped them out, so Kerry usually does not avoid the meetings or Zoom meetings, but this call was like, he was waiting for the past 1 month, fixing everything. And that's why. So sorry about that.
No, that's okay. That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. And again, Shamani was pretty classic example that she said that she had a default. We organized the right company to help her out to remove the default. And now we know that one of the main reason what the file was going to be declined for, it won't be declined because the defaults has been removed.
Yes. So you got to do that upfront work.
Yeah.
So how can people find out their credit report? What do they need to do?
Lodge a credit query through.
How much does that cost?
$20.
$20. Yep. So I want to give people some homework. So where do we go? Where's the website? Where do we?
Equifax. So go onto the Equifax website and you can lodge a credit report through that.
Great. What's it called again?
Equifax. So
and you can do that. So as your homework, guys, what I want you to do tonight, if you're not sure about your credit rating, go onto the website, log in, pay $20, check it out. Because really at the end of the day, if you want to invest in property, you need to have a clear credit and get forward and clean everything out your way.
Yeah.
That's a good start. Would you suggest that's a good idea for people?
That's a perfect idea. Yeah. Yep. So like that basically like brings them like 12 months in advance. If they have missed out any payments in last 12 months, this is a time to fix it up and make sure everything is back to normal.
Yep.
We have got like issues with someone who has a $4 million portfolio, but they had a $100 default on their profile through Origin. And he's like, it was never my fault. I said, let's go back to Origin, get a letter that it was not your fault and their fault. It took us a week to get the letter from Origin and got approved on the next day.
Yeah, beautiful. And that's happened to me in the past too, because I've got many companies and one of my companies didn't pay something years ago. And I didn't realize until I got the credit report and then we fixed it and got the loan. So so it's important to fix your credit and check out your credit. And therefore, and you want to, because the credit report can be a complete minefield and blow up at the wrong time. And you don't want to be caught off guard. And also you don't want to end up getting a bad name and losing and getting declined in a loan. So really important to get your credit checked out beforehand, clean it up and do it like that.
And I exactly remind you that it's not that you're going to get approved because that's again, it's a bank's end. We do all our due diligence to make sure it gets approved. We never give a commitment in writing because nowadays the banks have their own policies that change overnight.
Yeah.
So but I told her that we knew that this is one of the point that's going to decline your file straight away, and you have to sort that out first.
Yeah. This is the default.
Yeah. So
I said it's just going to get declined, so we're not going to put it in.
And
Yep. Great. And that's important. That's very good because you've got that up front. That's excellent. So, okay. So
just going back to that. Yeah. So if I pick up a fact find, right, like this, it's got, I'll just quickly run through it. It's got, their personal details, date of birth.
Actually, do you mind emailing me a fact find? Maybe we can let people have a look at one.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? They can download one, have a look, and just see what it looks like, just to get a bit of an idea of what information they need to get a loan.
Yeah.
I'll fill out one.
So, and I'll just quickly run through it. So I'm looking at things like how long they've lived in their property for, or their current address. Their date of birth is important. Their employment type, whether they're full or part-time. Their income is important. The occupation may or may not be important. How long they've been in their employment.
Well, occupation at the moment is probably pretty important because if they work in entertainment, I don't think they're getting a loan.
Depends what sort of entertainment you're talking about, George.
Well, didn't someone get in trouble for going to a whorehouse? They got a fine because of the lockdown restrictions.
Yes, yeah. In the UK, I think it was,
I thought it was in Melbourne.
Oh no, actually no. There's another funny story in the UK that's going on right at the moment. And then, so that's really important. And then I think the most important thing then is to look at the net asset position is going to bear a huge weight. And I'll come to this in a second. So the net asset position.
Can people fill out a fact finder at home to get a bit of an idea of
they can.
Where there are?
It's very easy.
I think assets and liabilities would be a really good one for people to fill out and check out.
Yeah. So, if you look at, and the reason I'm saying this, and I'll come to it in a second, is about the credit scoring that the banks do. So, if I look at this one, for example, I'm looking at, they've got a lot of assets, but income's really low. So I know that the credit score, and I'll explain credit score in a second, because this is not the credit score that you get on your credit report, but this is the bank's credit scoring. I know that this client would most likely get a credit score rating of a 4 or a 5 out of a 5. So
how do you know that?
I can tell by the fact that the income that the age of the client and the income that she is earning are both, in other words, her age, this particular client's 58. So she has 17 years left of serviceability with a lender based on a retirement age being deemed 75 by most lenders. So I know straight away this particular application would be have a really high credit score with a bank of a 4 or a 5, which means it will get declined. So I've essentially told her today that I just don't believe we can do an application for her. I'm pretty straightforward with that. If people have got too much credit card or personal unsecured debt, it's another reason to be working towards a 3 or a 4 or 5 scoring. To get a scoring 1 or a 2, essentially you've got to be very clean. You've got to have lots of assets. You've got to have lots of income. And a 1 is usually you'll get as if you're actually with that lender already.
Right. Okay. So the score goes from between 1 and
5.
5. And 5 means?
5 is an automatic system decline, which means that the bank will not overturn that decision.
1 is an automatic yes.
1's pretty automatic yes.
And where's the grey area?
The grey area is a 3 and a 4.
Right. Okay. So with a 3 or 4.
Yeah. 3 is, it can still be approved. 4 is usually a decline, but can be overturned with reasonable or strong mitigants. 5, it can't be overturned by anybody at the bank.
So what I was going to ask is, let's say, for example, someone's going for a loan and it just gets declined. Can you put up a case and get them to overturn that?
If it's a 4, yes. If it's a 5, no.
Great. So you can go in and actually negotiate for the client and say, look, this is the reason why. Look at this and do it.
And I've had multiple times where we've had a decline on a credit scoring of a 4, and I've got it overturned.
Great, great. And is that because of your relationship, or you know what to say, or how to do it,
Mixture
or
of the relationship and also what explanation that we can give? And I'm the best, without saying I'm making up stories, I'm the best writer there is, and I know how to. I used to be a policeman, so I know how to put a brief together. Very good.
right? Okay, so it's a matter of packaging the brief and sending it to
Correct.
them, explaining it, and saying this is it. Great. I'm going to share my screen because I'm going to go through strategies on how to buy property with no deposit. Okay, let's do this.
No deposit.
Oh yeah, I'm ready for buying properties.
Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Cash flow secrets. So, how do we get a loan? Okay, number one is cash. Let's just go through and just expand on this. So with cash, what do? If you've got cash in the bank, you can use that as a deposit. How much do you need?
20% plus stamp duty, so 25%.
Yep. But you can go lower though, can't you?
You can go to 10% plus stamp duty. We wouldn't be recommending anybody go any higher than 90%.
Yeah, but it is possible, isn't it?
It is possible.
Yep. So, because what I want to do is just give people what's possible out there. So, it's possible to get 5% plus stamp plus expenses.
You'd need to put down 5% plus expenses, but it's going to be very costly.
Yes. So, worst case scenario, if you're really desperate and you really wanted to get a property, you could put 5% cash down and you can get a property. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it'd be difficult, and you wouldn't get the right terms.
The rate would be high.
Yep.
You end up owing 97%, 98% of the value of the property.
Yeah. Which is not recommended. We don't want to do that, but it is possible.
It is possible.
But really, at the end of the day, the more cash you put in, the better terms you're going to get. So if you put 20% in, the banks really like that, and you can get you don't have to pay lender's mortgage insurance, and you're going to get a better rate. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Is there any value in putting more than 20% in, or not really?
Not really.
No. So 20% is really the max you want to put in.
For an investor, I mean, it depends on everyone's circumstances. Obviously, we have to look at everyone's.
If you put 30% in, are you going to get a better rate? Is it possible?
It is possible, yes.
Yep. Okay. So if you got cash, we can go to the extreme of putting more cash to get a better rate.
Correct.
And then we can go to the extreme of putting less in to get a worse rate. And really, the balance is normally, if you're doing between 10 to 20%, that's the sweet spot. Because 10%, you're not paying as much LMI. You can still get a reasonable rate and you can get it done. Because the challenge is, if you wait to have enough cash sometimes, the market's going to move and then you won't be able to get it and you keep missing the market. So you need to really balance that out. And what we want to do is get people the best rate, but also get the timing right to do that. Mm-hmm. So 10 to 20%. So 20%, you're not paying any lender's mortgage insurance. You're getting a good interest rate. With 90%, what's happening? You're paying LMI?
Yes, correct.
Yep. And what is LMI?
Anything over 80% in general terms, you're going to be paying.
Yep. And how is that calculated, and how much is it, and how does it work?
So it's calculated. There are the two methods. The first method is it goes up in increments, usually of 2%. So 82%, 84%, 86, 88, 90, 92, 94, etc.
Yep.
It's also then calculated based on the loan amount, and I think from memory, the first tranche is up to 350,000. The next tranche is 500. The next tranche is 750, $1 million, and so on. And that's how they sort of come together. And
work. 1 second. Sorry, I'm just at the door. Sorry.
Good. It's killer. It's not declined, but it's wait till I tell you.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's all right.
Okay, so basically, what I like about going 20% is with 20%, you're not paying LMI, and therefore you got more flexibility, and you can change your loan more often. But if you go 90%, 95%, you've put in so much cost, you don't really want to change that loan. You want to stick to it, and you want it long term.
Yeah.
So really, trying to get to that 20% is really important, and maybe even saving up a bit more money and tightening the belt a little bit is worthwhile to get that extra cash to get over the line.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Yep. So that's cash. Equity. Let's talk about equity, because equity is one of those. Equity is actually the biggest underutilized asset in Australia. In Australia, 50% of people have got massive equity. People that have got mortgages, massive equity. We've got one of the biggest equities in the world. We are actually Australia compared to any other country, which is pretty amazing. And a lot of people, what they're doing is, they get up in the morning, to go to work, like 6, 7 o'clock. They have their coffee and maybe, a bit of Weet-Bix or whatever. They go past their lounge room, wave to the equity and say, hello, equity. Equity's sitting there. They go to work all day. They get home 6, 7 o'clock. They've been working hard. This is 5 or 6 days a week. They're working hard to earn the income. But what's the equity doing? Nothing. The equity's sitting home watching Days of Our Lives doing nothing. And there's literally a pile of money. As you can see this picture. You can see the picture?
Yeah.
There's a pile of money sitting under people's homes in their equity and doing nothing. And what smart people do is they get the equity out working for them. So with me, I've flipped it. I'm actually at home now, but my equity is not in the lounge room. My equity is out all around Australia working for me and making me money every day while I sleep. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's great. And a lot of people don't know how to flip that switch, and it's very, very important. So tell me about equity. How do we use equity and what happens? Because I had an interesting question last night. There's a guy that wants to join our program, and he's like, George, but if we use equity, what about our repayments? And he doesn't get that. And explain how equity works and how do we use it to get property and why it's such a powerful tool.
Well, the equity that you may have in your, say, your principal place of residence, for example, well, that would be another facility potentially, interest only, which is sort of being utilised to then also go and take out a loan against the property that investment property you want to go and buy, and all of that lending, if it's associated with the purchase of an investment property, would be tax deductible depending on your own scenario and income and expenses and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, so explain, because what happens is some people do it the wrong way and don't get the tax deduction. And how are they doing it wrong? What happens? Because I've seen people do this wrong.
Well, essentially, a lot of people might go and pay down or buy an investment property, for example. This is just one scenario, but they go and buy their first property is an investment property, and then they go and pay the loan, down pretty quickly. And then they want to buy their principal residence, for example, and they think they could just redraw the loan back up against the investment property to go and buy their principal residence. What they don't realise is that that's not a purpose for tax deduction.
Yep.
That's one example. Another one, might be that they've gone and paid cash when they've actually got equity they could use.
Yes, exactly.
That account.
And this is the thing, right? And this is what I tell people. My number one way of investing in this property is using equity. I prefer keeping my cash in the offset account because that's very important. And the thing is, when I'm paying something off, I want to pay off my property that I live in, my principal place of residence, because I'm not getting any tax deductions on that.
Correct.
See, there's good debt and bad debt. And your principal place of residence is not an investment. It's not an asset. It's a liability because it costs you money every week. And what I like to do is get rid of that liability and pay it off as quick as I can. Mm-hmm. However, with my investment properties, I consider that good debt because I'm getting the tax man, the tenant, to pay for most of it, and the bank. So I'm really not lifting a finger, getting them doing all the hard work. And that's the important part.
Yeah.
So that's why it's really important to get this right. And I think what happens sometimes is people take money. If you get your home loan, you take the money out of your home, then use that to buy a property, then it's complicated. And it's much better isolating the equity because you can just get the equity as isolated. It's like a guarantor, isn't it, for your loan? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yep. Any other tips on equity?
No, I think that about covers it.
Okay, so how do we maximize equity? How do we maximize our valuations? Because obviously, valuations, how do they work? What's the best way to do that? Because I've got my tactics. I want to just ask you what you do.
Well, I think you need, and this is probably depending on, where you live, for example. If you've got investment properties in other states, it might be a little bit harder than if you lived in the same state. But essentially, you need to know, if you're going to get a valuation on one of your properties, then you need to know everything that you can about the suburb, the property, comparable sales, basically package something up to a valuer to be able to basically do the work for them. Because a lot of valuers, I don't want to, this is probably a generalization, but a lot of them, I think, don't want to have to put in the work. And if they're given the information, and you can do the work for them, then that may assist with getting the valuation that you need. And
yeah, well, look, sorry.
I've got examples of that myself. I had a client here in Victoria. It was a principal place of residence, and I think we got 3 valuations. The first 2 valuations, he just let the valuer walk through. And then we got the reports, and they came in about 150,000 lower than what he believed it was worth.
Yep.
So I said to him, on the third valuation, why don't you provide a folder of every single appliance, every single feature, like the hydronic heating and the in the polished floors, the marble, this, that. So he presented this book to him, gave it to him, and the valuation came in $150,000 higher.
Amazing. And have you got an example of what people should do? Like a bit of homework. What can you do to improve your valuation? You need to get some comparable sales.
Comparable sales.
And where do you get those?
Well, that you can either get those from real estate agents online, or actually contacting local real estate agents.
Yeah, so you can call a local real estate agent. Look, I might be looking at selling my home, and what I like to do is get a valuation and find out how much it's worth. Yeah. And then the real estate agent will actually come in and do a report.
Yeah.
And you can use their report. And the good part about real estate agents is they want to give you a high valuation because they want to sell your property, and they know if they give you a high valuation, you're going to do it. So it's going to work in your favor, and they're going to find the right properties, because when you give a valuer something in writing, they can't just ignore it. They have to consider that. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Yep. And that's the difference, because if a valuer just walks in, you go, oh, I think my house is worth this much. It falls on deaf ears. They're not going to listen to you. But if you give them a folder full of work, it's great. And I've done this theory. I've done this myself. But even if you've got a property interstate, what you can do is you can actually organize a real estate agent to give you comparables. You can do everything and set up the package, and you can send it and give it to your property manager, who's probably going to be the one letting them in anyway.
Absolutely.
With the valuation. And your property manager is your team partner here, and you really want to do that, because when a valuation is low, what does it really mean? It doesn't really mean anything. It just means someone gave it a low valuation. And the thing is, a bit like, if you have a child and you're teaching your child how to walk, and if it falls down the first time, you're not going to just say, oh, well, too bad, it's not going to walk. You keep trying till it walks, correct? And getting a valuation is the same thing. Just because you get a bad valuation doesn't mean that's the end. And a lot of people get despondent, but really it doesn't mean anything. What it means, you need to get another valuation, and you need to get another one. You keep going. I mean, how many valuations do you go? What do you do? How do you do it?
Look, I would say that, we've had situations, where we may try up to 4 valuations on a particular property. And, and I think, after we've got to that point, it's either one stands out well above the others, or they're all coming in around the same mark. And then, I'm quite comfortable to say, look, I've got 4 valuers all giving you a range of between, $50,000. That's what it is, right? Or we've got the other scenario where we might have one, 800, we might have one at 900, and we might have one at $1 million. And that does happen. Yep. No one's right, no one's wrong, because that's that valuer's opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
They're all valid valuations.
Yep. And so with new properties, what normally happens with valuations with a brand new property?
I think the thing with valuers going out to value brand new properties is one of the things that always comes up with a valuer's comments in the report is that there's minimal comparable sales. And the reason there's minimal comparable sales because
there's nothing else that's brand new. That's
nothing else is brand new.
Yep.
This happens with land all the time.
And how does that affect the valuation?
It can affect the valuation. It may, depending on the purchase price, it may come down $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $100,000.
Yep, and that's a bit of an issue. But I guess how do you cope with that issue? What do you do?
Well, it's the same thing, like I can
just get more valuations. Can you get valuations before you get a loan? Is that possible as well, or?
It's quite difficult now, given that the banks, when we order a valuation, we have to order it through the bank's panel valuers.
Yep.
Now, so we get allocated a particular valuer. So
now
that valuation comes back. We either use it or we don't, and then we might go on to another lender and do a valuation with that lender, and then we compare them. And it's like putting a brief before a court. You're going to do all your research before you go and present it to the judge.
Yep. And now, can you choose? Is there some ways of choosing your own valuer? Because obviously, some valuers, there's no way to do it.
No.
Okay, but some value
due to conflict of interest.
Some valuers are not as good as other valuers, though, are they? Unfortunately.
Well, yeah.
I find the valuers a lot more experience usually give better valuations because they're more confident, and the new guys sometimes are a bit shitting them. They're scared and they just do what's really safe and lower it just to keep safe. Okay, so that's equity, great, and personal loan. I know some people get a personal loan to get them, especially like, for example, let's say they've only got 10% deposit, but you want to get to 20%, and it's if they're short just a little bit of money, is that possible, or is it more?
It's not in the industry. It's not. I don't want to use the word frowned upon, but it's not a very strong form of trying to build your equity for that reason.
Okay. Yep. Because I've seen some people do this and
do it. It's something that I don't personally see would be a good application to a bank.
Yep. But I suppose
it's going to be a flag. It's going to bring up your threes or your fours or your fives.
It's going to put it down. What about a loan from a family member?
Yes, a loan from a family member. We are having. We have had a few situations lately where the bank will accept if it's not going to be a gift, because there's a difference between a gift from a family member, which is non-repayable, and a loan from a family member. We have seen circumstances now where if it's a loan from a family member, the bank will accept it as long as there is an associated liability factored into the assessment of the loan.
Okay, yep. So that's what they do. But so basically, I mean, I'd rather use this than pay mortgage insurance.
Yeah, and that's the circumstance where we've done that before, correct.
Because the challenge is, I mean, if you're at 90% or you're just under 80%, because you're going to pay so much mortgage insurance, you can actually, I mean, mortgage insurance sometimes is 10, 15 grand. And that could be the gap to not pay mortgage insurance. All you need to do is get that 10, 15 grand you're paying anyway. Give it to the bank up front and then avoid the mortgage insurance, and you're really saving 10 or 15 grand, because that 10 or 15 grand is a lot better, not as a fee, and having it that way. It's a big difference, isn't there?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And that one's sort of a case by case scenario, but we have done a few of those over the last couple of years.
Yeah, exactly. So there's another way of doing things. Joint venture. Talk about joint ventures, because how does that work?
Yeah, so I think we touched on that last week, George, that joint ventures, the way I see a joint venture, may work for people is that, you've got a person that's got the equity.
Yep.
But they may not necessarily have the borrowing capacity. And then you've got a person that's got the borrowing capacity but doesn't necessarily, have the equity. So that can work. I think the main factors that I look at there are that we want to make sure that people understand what they're doing when they do go into a joint venture, especially from a point of borrowings, that they're joint and severally liable. And in most cases, that may or may affect them borrowing any more money in their own names by themselves later.
Yep. Okay. So
we're very clear about the downsides of that. There's lots of upsides, but there are downsides, and it's important. We wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't explain those to people.
Yes, absolutely. When you're doing a joint venture, the challenge is moving forward from that. If you're not going together still, then it's hard to untangle yourself.
Exactly,
right?
That's right.
However, doing a joint venture and getting a property is better than not getting a property and just missing out completely. And what I've got is I've got one of our members. He's actually bought 2 properties this year, and he's on his 3rd now. And what he's doing for his 3rd, he's going halves with his brother.
Yeah.
And because he wants to get another one, his brother does, and he's thinking, why not? And he's actually one of our star members. He's like getting 3 or 4 a year. He's just smashing it. And what happens is he's got the income, but he needed more assets because he's got very high income and he's bought 3 properties. So to get his 4th, he needs to get more. And because him and his brother own a property together, they're just going to use that to jumpstart and get another one. So then they've got 2 together. So what he's doing is getting his personal name ones up and getting the ones with joint venture with his brother, which is great. So that's the way you can do it. So you've either got high income, or you got equity, cash.
Yeah.
And those 3 things, you see, equity and cash are one side of things, and income's the other side of things. And really, to get a loan, you need both sides of the balance to get a loan. So if you've got one person with either cash or equity, the other person with a high income, those 2 things are a really good match. A bit like chicken and avocado. They're a great match. They work well together, and why not? So really, if you've got equity, you've got cash, and you haven't got income, you need to find someone that you trust that can get this. Or if you've got lots of income but don't have the equity or the cash, you need to find someone else. And then if you match up, that's like perfect. Okay, great. So that's JV. Guarantor. There's another way. And one of the ways we use guarantors, for example, is we've had many members. We get, a lot of young guys joining our program that are like 20, 21 years old, and they've got a good job making income. But the challenge is they just don't have the equity or the cash. And their parents have got a house with plenty of equity in it, and they're not keen at investing, but they trust their son. And what they do is they guarantor. How does the guarantor work? How does it work?
So basically, so there are not many lenders who approve the guarantor application. So obviously, like Top 4 does. So how it works is like you can borrow up to 100% if there's a family guarantor involved. But it has to be an investment property. So if parents have only one property where they're living in, and then the kids want to buy their home, parents can't provide their home to basically create as a guarantee. It has to be their investment properties.
Yeah, it has to be an investment property, yes. And basically the guarantor the parents don't have to pay the guarantor doesn't have to pay anything at all.
No.
All they're doing is giving 20% equity to their house. And really the person buying the investment property is doing all the hard yards and paying all the money.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful situation, especially for young people, and a great way to get started really fast, because it's hard to get a big deposit, especially when you're first starting out. And what parents can do, or relatives, they can really kickstart someone's future investment really early, which is great, because the thing is, properties double every 7, 10, 12, 15 years, whatever the number is. Historically, it's been every 10 years, but in the future, we don't know if it's going to be 7, 10, 12, 15. Regardless, if you start now and get a guarantor and get in 5 years, that's going to make a massive difference. Because let's say, example, if a property worth 400,000, let's say on average it doubles every 10 years. So if you have a property for 10 years, you're going to make $400,000. And if you get a guarantor, instead of saving that deposit, you save yourself 5 years.
Yeah.
That's actually $200,000 to start with. But in the future, it's even more. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So it's pretty amazing. So I really think guarantor, who else can be a guarantor for you? I mean, we talked about parents. What else, who else can do it?
Essentially, depending on the lender, parents or grandparents.
Yep.
Yeah.
What about husband or wife?
I suppose, well, if the husband and the wife, I think that should be fine. I think that'll be a case-by-case scenario depending on the lender.
I'd imagine they're just as close as parents or grandparents. So that's the way guarantor works, which is great. That's awesome. Deposit bond. What are these things? Tell me about deposit bonds.
Deposit bonds. God, I haven't used a deposit bond and I don't know how long.
But it is a way of getting a loan.
Well, essentially, a deposit bond is only really, as it says, it's for a deposit. So a deposit bond is usually only securing a deposit on a property, but the loan eventually takes over once the property ownership comes into place. So the deposit bond's really only a way of securing a deposit on a property versus paying cash.
All right. Yes. So really, this is just the 5% or 10% to get.
Correct. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's only really a holding pattern thing until the property settlement.
Yep.
Usually the only reason you get a deposit bond in most cases,
yep,
if you've got a lot of equity in your property and you actually don't have enough, you don't actually have any cash readily available to go and put a deposit down. That's when most people use it. The reason why we don't use them, or I haven't used one for a very long time, is because in most cases we're just organising cash out of from their equity in the property.
Yep, great. So you can do that. How do you organise a deposit bond? Is it easy? Is it hard? What do you do?
Usually a deposit bond requires some type of approval from a lender to go with it. So the deposit bond company knows that a lender is going to lend money.
Yep. Okay.
So they're not. I wouldn't say they're not straightforward. There's a little bit of time involved. And my thought of training is, if we can get the cash out as fast as we can to get the deposit bond, then the cash out is better.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Essentially,
deposit bonds were very favourable. Were very popular back in the times when people were buying property off the plan and a property may take, say, 4 years, and they didn't want to put their cash in. They'd rather get a deposit bond, because a deposit bond was actually a cheaper way of putting your deposit down.
All right. Yes, exactly. And I personally don't like waiting 4 years to get a property. Forget that.
No, exactly. So they were very popular for people buying off the plan to go and buy their principal place of residence.
All right. Yep. Creative finance. I think we covered this when it came to, cash flow. This is more like a JV thing. Any other creative way of getting a loan? Anything we've missed?
No, I think we're legally.
Yeah, that we only want to do legal stuff. No shenanigans here.
I think we've covered all of them. Yeah.
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 Oh, well, you're super. Right. So just look, at the end of the day, we're not financial advisors, so we can't give people advice on this. But I could talk about what other people have done. And basically, with superannuation, there's two ways you can use super. One way is if you got more than $180,000 in super, you can create a self-managed super fund. You need to talk to a financial planner and make sure this actually suits what you want to do. And then you can get a property in super. And the beautiful part about a property in super, this is what I love, is when you got your exit strategy, the property you got in super, you can actually sell and pay no tax on it.
Yep.
So let's say I buy a $400,000 property now, and in 20 years I'm retiring. That $400,000 property in 20 years, it's going to probably double twice. So it's going to go to 800, then 1.6 million. So ultimately, I'm going to end up having 1.6 million tax-free cash coming into me. Because when we're retired, we don't want to sell our investment properties because we're paying capital gains. But what we want to do is we can sell our principal place residence if we want, so we can downsize or upsize, usually downsize because you're retiring. And then what you can do is get all the properties you've got in super and sell them and get the cash and then put that in your offset account. So you've got a massive offset account, and then you can live the life of luxury and the lifestyle you deserve.
Yeah.
There's one other thing with super at the moment, which a lot of people have been doing. And like I said before, you need to really check with a financial planner or someone that's licensed to talk about this. But what I've done is you can take out 10,000 because of COVID-19. So I've taken 10,000 out because I think my $10,000 in super, one thing, I'm taking 10,000 out now, 30th of June, I'm taking another 10,000, that's $20,000. Now that $20,000 can go towards the deposit for a house, or I can put it in my offset account and keep myself safe. Either way, it's working a lot harder than in super. And because I can take it out without penalties or without being 65, it's ideal. Any other comments about this?
Well, I mean, I suppose, you know, one, depending on what your superannuation is doing, I mean, you know, the share, if it's in, you know, shares or managed funds, you know, or cash, we know that it's very volatile at the moment. That's probably just, you know, one analogy about superannuation at the moment. I think the other one is that, you know, going back over the last probably, say, you know, the last 2 to 10 years, you know, it was the, you know, thing you did. You went and bought a property in your self-managed super fund, and every lender, you know, most lenders were actually lending to self-managed super funds.
Yep.
You know, we'd be lucky if we could find 3 lenders for you now to do a self-managed super fund loan.
It is a bit harder, yes.
But it tells you that it's not the flavour of the month anymore. The government obviously doesn't want people to be doing it anymore for whatever reason.
Yes.
And so it's not saying that you shouldn't do it, but if you do it, it's going to cost you a lot more in the way of fees and rates than what it used to. So
yeah, look, it's very important. Very important, like with any investment, you need to do the cash flow calculator and work out what's going to happen. And what I like to do with super is be extra conservative and have a lot more buffers in place to make sure that I'm capable of looking after it, because you don't want to invest in something and be really fine line with the payments, because that could really put you in trouble. You've got to be very, very careful. So I really think whenever you invest in super, it's a very powerful strategy. It's a great strategy. But you really need to do your due diligence, get all the right advice, and really do your homework up front before you actually pull the trigger.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Where do you get a deposit? Okay, we've got that already. Using your equity, we've got that already. Homework. So homework, what's the homework going to be?
Well, I think,
okay.
Yep.
So you start, because I've got a few ideas, but you go.
You go, Ben.
Most importantly, as we discussed, it's more about checking your credit report. You know, like, so that's the first thing, which is like, should be given the priority. Even if you have money, if you have strong income, but if your credit report is not good, you can't go anywhere.
Yep.
And again, we're not saying that it would be your fault. Sometimes you're like, it's the other party who would have placed you on the default and you are not aware of it. So it's really important to do a credit check every 6 to 12 months. Make sure that you're like, it's up to date and your scoring is good and you are aware of what's happening.
Excellent. So what I'll do is we'll put that in a homework for people to check out. We've got to give them the website. The other homework I've got for people is I want you to actually, we're going to give you a list in the workbook, and we've got all the different ways you can get a property. And I want you to fill it out. I want you to write out how much cash do you have, how much equity do you have, how much money you got in your super. Do you have someone that you can JV with? Do you have income, or do you have equity? Do you have cash? Who do you know that can help you with the JV? Do you have a guarantor that can help you? Let's fill out every box and work out every single strategy. There's only one thing that I forgot and one thing I need to add for creative finance. This is very, very important. And this actually, we use this with one of our members. So we've actually got a member called Mark, and when he joined us, he had zero money in the bank. He was a truck driver and earning good money, over $100,000 a year, living at home. And he looked at joining our program. He was like, oh, it'll cost me a lot of money. I haven't got any money at the moment, and I'm going to be even more behind. But I said, look, you need to make that commitment and join the program if you want to get where you need to get, because we're going to get you there, because you've got the income, as long as you're willing to work hard, because it's not easy. He joined our program, and he worked hard, and you know what he was spending all his money on? Buying hotted up Commodores and all that sort of stuff. He had 5 cars.
Oh my God. Gee.
So I sat him down and I said, look, mate, I know you like your cars. You can only drive one at a time. So you've got a month. Next month, come back. I want you to sell 4 of your cars. Get rid of them.
Oh, that is a way of creating equity. Yeah.
Anyway, and it was painful for him. He didn't like it, but he sold them and we got a deposit for a house. Now, 3 years later, he's got a portfolio worth nearly $1 million.
Jeez.
He's got 80,000 in his offset account and he's making $250 a week positive, right? Not only that, his confidence went up. He got a better job. He's lost weight. He's looking better. His whole life has changed.
Magic story.
And now he bought the car of his dreams anyway. Because I said, now you can do it. You got 2 houses. You're getting a third. You can do it because he's got the money coming in. But massive difference what happens. So, you know, a lot of people got their jet skis and boats and cars and this and that. And really at the end of the day, most toys are sitting there doing nothing. How often do you really use them? And there's nothing wrong with toys, but really at the end of the day, you've got to get your properties first and get your toys later. You know, because I
sell my jet ski.
Sorry?
Should I sell my jet ski? I've got a toy.
All right, there you go. And there's nothing wrong with a toy once you've got your properties. And what happened was, like, for example, when I first retired, I was renting because I wanted to live on the beach. And living on the beach, you got to pay at least $2 million. And you can imagine for $2 million, at the time it was 7%, what were the repayments? That's 140 grand, 180 all up with everything, right? Yeah. And I had 10 properties making me $180,000 a year. So if I bought a house on the beach, I'd be making 0 and I wouldn't be able to retire. So what I did instead is I actually rented a house on the beach for $1,000 a week. So therefore, out of my 180, there was 50. I had 130,000 left over to pay for my lifestyle. So even the house you live in is a liability. And I suggest for people that haven't bought a house yet before, your first property should be an investment property. Because the investment property is doing all the heavy lifting. You're getting your tax back. You've got the tenant. You've got everything working for you. You're making money. And what I say is, I call it rent vesting. And I did a thing on Sunrise on Channel 9 with what's that guy called again? He's pretty famous. Georgie and
Carl Stefanovic.
Yeah. So they invited me in. They invite me in quite often to have a chat about property, and we sat down. This was last year with them, and we had a chat about rent vesting and what people are doing now. And it's one of the fastest growing things that's happening in Australia. What people are doing is they're renting where they want to live, and investing where they want to invest. Because investment property and a rental property and a place that you're living is very different. And I really think you want to build your portfolio, start investing first, and you can live where you want to live later. So what happened? What I did is I had 10 properties, and you need to have enough properties, investment properties, to pay for your principal place of residence.
Yeah.
So the more expensive your house is, the more houses you need. So now I've bought more properties because I need more properties to cover my principal property and still make money. So I ended up buying a property in the beach. I just bought more investment properties to give me the income to do that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I've got to the stage now where I make more money when I sleep than when I'm awake, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, last year I made over $1 million out of property.
Amazing.
Which was pretty cool. And I sort of said, wow, because the thing is, when you start investing, it starts off so small.
Yeah.
You know, first you buy a property and maybe you're making $50 a week. And what's that per year? $2,000. You made $2,000. Big deal. But the funny thing is, because of compounding interest, it goes up. And the reason I made so much money last year out of property is because I've had them for so long. Because the longer you have them, the more they double. You know, you buy a $400,000 property, in 10 years it's worth 800. But in 20 years, it's 1.6. That's massive. Now, $1.6 million, if that goes up 10%, there's 160,000 that you made just like that.
Yeah.
Right? That's a lot of money. And if you got 10 of those, there's $1 million, you know, easy. So there we go. So look, thank you so much for doing this interview, because I really think now we've nailed it.
Yeah, it's great.
The information we've got now is really the caliber of what I really want to teach our students.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind doing another one about rapid mortgage reduction, but this takes a lot of energy and I'm knackered.
I've got an urgent file I've got to get on.
Yeah, exactly. I've got work to do as well. So I'm going to send to this girls. I'm going to set that up, and maybe maybe next week we do rapid mortgage reduction. It's going to be a lot shorter. It's only going to be about 10 to 15 minutes. But thank you so much.
Yeah.
V, can you please send me the figures?
Yeah.
I really want to do this case study and get this done because it's important to have this spread out all our training.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I'm hoping we're ready to launch tonight. So talk to you guys soon.
What time will we be launching?
Look, I'm going to talk. I've been getting calls. I've been ignoring all these calls. So I've got the team putting everything together. I'll let you know when we're launching because I've got a whole series of emails that we want to send out to all our clients and SMS and a few other things. I'm putting the package together, which I'll probably send you tomorrow. We're going to launch. I want to get at least 100 people in here. And out of 100 people, I think we're going to get 20 or 30 new clients on board, which is going to keep us all busy. You know what I mean? It's going to be great.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Okay. Thanks, mate. Okay. Bye. Bye.